Yes, it is time to review and rank all of the Mission Impossible movies. You know how these videos work with the brand new Mission Impossible movie, The Final Reckoning, which may or may not be the final movie in the franchise. I'm gonna lean towards probably not. But we now have 8 of these gosh darn things, and I'm gonna talk about each and every one of them because I love this franchise. If you don't know what Mission Impossible is, it's essentially America's version of James Bond. With our own American superhero, Tom Cruise, I guess is the most American guy that America has to offer. Doing cool action stuff. And running. He runs a lot. It's an awesome franchise. If I have to explain it to you, you might be on the wrong video at this point. Go watch it. Let's start ranking these out. At number 8, we have Mission Impossible 2. This seems to be kind of the consensus, that this one is the worst. It's also the weirdest Mission Impossible movie. On the one hand, it feels like the most generic. This feels like what we get out of most modern action blockbusters, or actually, early 2000s blockbusters. There's a lot in this film that tends to copy stuff that was successful in other movies like The Matrix, the slow-mo shootouts, right? The slow-mo action runs and Tom Cruise being beautiful. The plot here is also kind of a little bit of a nothing burger, and the one thing about this film that I really don't love is, in the grand scheme of Mission Impossible stuff and canon of Mission Impossible, this one is ignored, especially the ending of this movie, which is just never addressed. And I think it's because they all collectively knew this one was kind of a shit-tard. It had a boring plot, a boring villain, probably the worst and most generic action in the whole series, but hey, it did give us our first introduction into long-hair Tom Cruise, which is my favorite version of Tom Cruise. It's beautiful. And number 7 is Mission Impossible 3, also known as the Philip Seymour Hoffman Mission Impossible. It's the only thing I really remember about this movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a bad guy, and he's got Tom Cruise's wife, and Tom Cruise has to go do different things to get his wife back, and the mission is very much impossible. There's some good action here. This one is definitely more enjoyable than the second one. I think it's a lot better than the second one, mainly because Philip Seymour Hoffman's just like the greatest actor who's ever existed, ever. But just another one that's like largely forgettable in the grand scheme of these MI movies. And number 6 is Mission Impossible 1. Yeah, the early trilogy of Mission Impossible movies, I think, are the 3 worst. They're the 3 that are the most different than what the franchise would eventually become in number 4, which we'll talk about soon. They seem more generic and more grounded than what the franchise eventually became, being these gigantic, epic action blockbusters, where Tom Cruise really got to let loose and do some incredible things. Mission Impossible 1, though, is my favorite of that original trilogy, just because it's more of a spy thriller. This is the one that really feels like an attempt to make a James Bond movie. And it is probably my favorite James Bond movie I've ever seen. I'm not a big fan of the James Bond movies, I'm not gonna lie. But I love this Bond movie. It's probably my favorite one. Ethan Hunt is very much a spy in this one. I like the plot. I like the villain. The things that are impossible are a little bit smaller, right? There's not like a large-scale plot here, which I actually kind of like, and hope that's the direction they go with, that they continue making these movies, doing something that's a little bit, when it comes to the stakes, maybe tone it down. It could be like smaller stakes, but bigger for the characters, right? Bigger for Ethan Hunt, which is what this movie is. I like the villain. It's a good one. It's a fun one. It started the franchise, and you can see why a lot of people liked it, and liked it enough to give them money, which allowed them to make 7 more of these things. And number 5 is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Mission Impossible 7, the second newest Mission Impossible we've gotten. I really love this movie. This one gets a lot of crap. This is one of the few movies in this franchise a lot of people don't speak highly of, and I just want to make a point from this point on. All of these movies I love, Number 5 through 1, these movies are all like either 4.5 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, including Dead Reckoning. I love this movie. This movie blew my socks off. Essentially, this movie introduces this new plot where Ethan Hunt and his team are trying to stop this AI bot from taking over the world and killing everybody. And we get a lot of great action sequences in this movie. There's an awesome sequence that takes place on an airport that involves security cameras that I thought was really sort of exciting and done extremely well. There's a great car chase or bike chase sort of that happens that I loved. And of course you have the final act, which takes place on a train, which there's a lot of train stuff in this franchise, but the train stuff in this one is really, really good. Of course, my main gripe with this movie is what they decided to do with Rebecca Ferguson's character, and kind of just throwing her to the side and introducing Haley Atwell, who's nowhere near as interesting in this movie as Rebecca Ferguson is in the other Mission Impossibles. I still like Grace. Rebecca Ferguson. We love Rebecca Ferguson. This is still an extremely solid movie, but at the end of the day, it's also a part 1. This is half a story, so it was always going to be one of the weaker films in the franchise. Anytime you do a part 1, it's never going to be one of the top-rated films in that franchise, except for Avengers Infinity War. That was a fucking phenomenal part 1, and a lot better than Endgame. That might be a hot take. And number 4 is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This is one that I see a lot of people ranking as their favorite in the franchise. This one is pretty This one is very much the most spy thrillery of all of these spy thriller movies. This one feels in the vein of like a Captain America Winter Soldier, where it's a straight up sort of covert operations, secret organizations, secret criminals, right? All these secret things going on, and Ethan Hunt having to uncover it all. There's this secret squad called the Syndicate, which it's all these rogue agents from different countries who are kind of joined together in like this Metal Gear Solid outer heaven type of thing. And nobody believes that the Syndicate even exists, so he has to go rogue and prove that the Syndicate exists and take them down. You have a really great villain, Solomon Lane, who is arguably the best villain in this franchise. Some really good action sequences here. The introduction of Rebecca Ferguson, who we, as previously noted, love very much. There's a great car chase, probably the best car chase of this whole entire thing. Tom Cruise held his breath for like an hour for some fucking reason. He didn't have to do that. No one would have known. And you have an ending that the main reason this kind of ranks lower than the three films ahead of it, is I felt like the third act of this movie, the climax, is anticlimactic when compared to all of the other films in the franchise. When compared to the three films ahead of it. The three films ahead of this, I feel like, have these big action set pieces in their third act that really feel huge and amazing. And this is the one where it didn't really feel exactly that. The third act sort of set piece here is very much a character-driven thing, which I know a lot of people dig. I prefer the gigantic action, big money, Call of Duty-esque action sequences we get in the following three movies. And number 3 is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, the real relaunch of this franchise. And I think this is the film where most people jumped on board of this franchise. Me in particular, I went a lot of years where I had never even seen the first 3 Mission Impossible films, that this was Mission Impossible 1 for me. It's a very simple story about Ethan Hunt and his team trying to take down this Russian dude who's trying to blow the planet up. Simple enough. And I remember watching this for the first time and just being sold at the opening sort of sequence in this prison of Ethan Hunt escaping and then going immediately to the Kremlin and all the craziness that happens there with the technology and the relationship between Tom Cruise and Simon Pegg, their chemistry just being so good on screen, and just the story spiraling out of control. Of course, you eventually go to that big, gigantic building. I believe it's in Saudi Arabia. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really big, and Tom Cruise saw that building and the voice in his mind said, "There's a very tall building, Tom. Climb it. Climb it now. You must jump off that building, Tom. You must do it now. And you must film it for a movie." And he did. He jumped off that building. He climbed that building. It's one of the craziest sequences ever. You have a great fight scene there. You have a great chase through the outside of the building. You have an awesome third act. I mean, this is just kind of the prototypical perfect Mission Impossible film. I don't know if you really can make an action film better than this, other than the 2 that I'm going to rank ahead of it. I love this movie. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I rewatch it all the time, and it was the perfect start to a franchise that had started like 15 years before. And number 2 is the brand new Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which is probably a lot higher than anybody else is going to rank it. I don't like those people. I think they're wrong. I think their opinions are invalid, and they should stop watching movies because I don't like them very much. I'm kidding. Kind of. But I really love this movie, and I don't understand why a lot of people aren't loving it. I mean, I get a lot of the criticisms. This movie is very yappy. There's a lot of yapping in this movie. Way more yapping than in any other Mission Impossible movie. I mean, the amount of yapping that transpires in the first half an hour of this movie is absolutely insane. But that's okay. Like, I like me some exposition. I don't really care that much. I didn't mind all the yapping. And there's a lot of setup in this movie that I actually found to be quite interesting. Yes, it's a poor way of telling a story, but it's okay. Because this movie is epic. It's 3 hours long, and I think it earns that runtime. It has some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in my life. A villain that I actually like. I know a lot of people aren't going to like him, but my God, that's Del, baby. I love Del. I feel like this is like the highest stakes could get in a movie. I don't know if you can really raise the stakes, at least on a human level, higher than this movie does. And I don't know if you can create a mission for Tom Cruise that is more impossible than this one. I mean, the mission is insane. I love all the characters in this movie. I think the team still has a good, sort of camaraderie. You have a bunch of new characters who I like, or newer characters from Dead Reckoning that I think are integrated better in this movie. Mainly Grace, Haley Atwell, I think is a lot better in this movie than in the last one. Tom Cruise, for the first time in this movie, isn't rogue, so you really get to feel this sort of coming together of nations almost to solve this problem, which I appreciated. It felt like it was trying to say a bigger message about the world today, which is nice when you do that in writing sometimes. And I just thought the third act of this movie is one of the best third acts I've ever seen in anything ever. I was leaning up in my seat, I was sweating, and I was gobsmacked at how the heck Tom Cruise did what he did with planes. It's insane. This is maybe my favorite third act in any movie ever. It's just absolutely unbelievable, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it this entire week. It is easily the best action sequence and the best third act of any of these films. It's the most incredible stunt performed in a Mission Impossible movie, and To me, that's why you go to see these films. You go to see sequences like the third act sequence of Final Reckoning, and it just happens to be the best one in the franchise. So yeah, I understand if you don't like all the yapping that transpires in this movie, and all the setup and the plots, and the over-convolutedness of the plot, and the messy first act. I understand if that makes you rank this film near the bottom of your list, but my god, that submarine sequence, amazing. That plane sequence, amazing. The stakes, the suspense, I mean, come on. I mean, Nick Offerman's in this movie. He doesn't do much. He's just here for some reason. I loved it. I almost wanted to put it 1, but let's be honest. There's one movie that is in this franchise that is quite honestly the best action movie I think that has ever been made. I don't think that's really a bold, hot take. And that's Mission Impossible Fallout. Yeah, I remember seeing this for the first time and just sitting in my chair after the movie for a long period of time and thinking, I don't think you can make a better movie than that. I don't think it's possible. This is, like, when you look up the term action movie, this is what you're getting. This is the film that should come up. It should be the example taught in film schools on how to tell a good action thriller. This movie is technically a part 2 to Rogue Nation. It's a continuation of that story with Solomon Lane coming back as one of the central villains here, and the aftermath and the fallout of that movie. And it's just an awesome, awesome film. You have these great spy elements going through all of it. The mystery with the story is great. I think the team is the best that it's ever been, with, of course, Tom Cruise back, Rebecca Ferguson giving one of my favorite performances of her career. Simon Pegg is great in this one. You get more Luther than you had gotten in the previous 2 films, and I think Luther is awesome. And then Henry Cavill giving my favorite performance of his career, even better than Superman. This is the film that led to the CGI mustache, which I think we all loved so much in the Whedon cut. He's so good here. This is the movie where he does that thing with his fist where he's like, that shit's awesome. I do that shit in the mirror every morning when I try to act a lot cooler than I am, but I'm not. I'm not Henry Cavill. I don't have muscles. I'm not Superman. But he plays a character here, and he's so, so awesome, and the action sequences are great. The third act of this movie is the only thing that is even close to the Final Reckoning's third act, the helicopter chase, and how close they actually get to failing. You feel out of breath at the end of this movie, because you're like, oh, that was close! Holy cow! It's just such a great movie from start to finish. Another great car chase in this one. You have Alec Baldwin before he killed someone, not in the movie. Yeah, it's easily the best film in the franchise. One of the greatest films ever made. Mission Impossible Fallout. Mission Impossible. What a franchise. What a impossible franchise. Thank you guys for watching. Have you seen any of these movies? If not, do you just like me? Is that why you're still watching? You just like my face? I mean, thank you. Holla at your boy. Shout out 7-Eleven. This is like the worst coffee I've had in months, baby. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more turn notifications. I'll see you in the next one.